Okay, Math 20-3. So we are now going to learn a little bit about credit cards and how much fun they can be. AKA, they usually take more money than you think. So we're going to learn how to kind of protect ourselves and make sure we're paying things off and not losing a ton of money just because we have a lot of interest owed. So a finance charge is the total amount of interest paid to borrow a sum of money. So that's just something you want to kind of start off and understand with. So we can see a really nicely worked out example here. I made a few adjustments. So make sure you read through these examples, right? They're there for you guys to look through, and then these work through examples as well. We have another work through example. So let's try one together. Calculate the interest due on the following credit card balances. So for B, an unpaid balance of $1,007.48 of 28.5% for 38 days. Okay, so how this works is we have to understand that we are going to be paying. If you don't pay your credit card off, you actually slowly start accumulating how much that is worth. So understand that this is a yearly per annum. Okay, so credit cards work on a yearly thing. So this will be for a year. So if you don't pay this amount of off your card, you're going to owe 21.5% of this in a year. But we're only going to not pay it for about 38 days. So what does that mean? That means we're going to have only a portion of this owed. So we still are going to use our I equals P R times T. In this case, your principal is your $1,007.48. Your R is in fact this percentage here. And remember, it has to be in a decimal. So I'm going to take 21.5 and divide it by 100, and that will give me 0.215. And now again, this is for a whole year, but we only have not paid for 38 days. So we're going to take 38 days and fraction that by a year. So 38 divided by 365. Oh, let's bring this out. There we go. And 38 days is only a fraction of a year, and that fraction is this. So 0.104, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so when we plug this in, we're either going to use this number, or you could just plug this in for for time. So this will be T. So we can plug this in. So P is $1,007.48 times your rate, which is 0.215, and then your time. And again, remember, this is attached to an entire year, but we're only doing 38 days. So we're going to take and figure out what the fraction of 38 days is in a year. And there's 365 days in a year. So we're going to do $1,007.48 times 0.215 times 38 divided by 365. And that gives me $22.55. So we're going to pay an extra $22.55 because we didn't pay for 38 days. That sucks. If it only takes about a month to make this person owe an extra $22 on top of things. Okay? And imagine if you didn't pay it off over an actual year. Then it's actually just 365 divided by 365. So you have to pay that entire 21.5% amount. So that's how banks make their money, if you always wondered that. They definitely don't just give money out. So let's look at number 3. So we have to be able to use charts sometimes. So Harley used her credit card to make the following purchases during the month. She does not have to pay interest on purchases during the month. Okay? Only in outstanding balances. So only on outstanding balances. What does an outstanding balance mean? Outstanding balance means she has not paid for it yet. Her credit card company charges 18.5% per annum. Okay. So let's figure all this out here. What is our balance due on the statement date, November 28th? So what we're pretty much going to do is we're just going to add all of these numbers together. Add all our purchases. Okay, so we're going to add every single purchase up here. And I'm not going to write it all out, but you would add all of these numbers up, and what you'll end up getting is $1,207.05. Okay, so that's how much she owes and she has to pay for. Okay, if the minimum payment is 5% or $10, whichever is greater, so what the bank does is you can pay either 5% of what you owe or $10, but they want you to pay the greater one. What is Harley's minimum payment? So you're allowed to pay only like a fraction of what you actually owe. Okay, so here the minimum payment would either be $10 on this or 5%, whichever is greater. So let's figure out what 5% of how much she owes is. So 5% of what she owes, well, I'm going to make this a decimal. So remember, 5% divided by 100, that's not a division symbol. So that's 0.05. So let's figure out what 5% of $1,207.05 is. So 0.05 times 1,207.05. And that gives me roughly $60.35. Now ask yourself, what's the minimum amount is she allowed to pay off? Well, 5% is definitely more than $10. So it looks like she's going to pay that $10 or that $60. So she can pay a minimum of $60.35 because it is greater than $10. Okay. If she pays only the minimum and doesn't use the card between then and the next statement, how much will she owe on her December 28th statement? Okay, so let's say she does pay this off. She pays the minimum amount, but then doesn't use her card and now has to owe again. Well, let's check. So this means she paid it off. So let's figure out how much she owes at the end of December. So minus $60.35, because remember, she paid that off last month. And that's going to be $1,146.70. Okay. Now, something to note is December 8th. This month here, she paid it off on the 28th. Okay, so to get from November 28th to December 28th, you have to think about how many days that is. The amount of days that is 31 days. Okay, because November, how many days does that have? Well, that actually has 30 days. So she would be accumulating interest on the 28th to the 30th, which is 3 days. And then she would also accumulate interest from December 1st to the 28th, which is 28 days. So total days, 3 plus 28 is 31 days. Okay, so she's slowly accumulating interest 31 days later. Okay, so if she pays only the minimum and doesn't use the card between then and the next statement date, how much will she owe December 28th? Okay, well, what we have to do is we have to use our percent interest. So I equals P times R times T. So that was our last example, right? And remember, there's how much she owes every day, per annum. So remember, this is per year. We add the interest depending on the amount of time she has left over. So P in this case will be 1,146 and 70 cents. The rate is 0.1850. So remember this number here, that's the R value. It just has to be in a decimal. And now this time, well, 31 days has passed. So I'm going to figure out what the fraction of 31 days is in a year. And that will be my interest. So she's slowly accumulating more money that she owes to the bank by not paying off her amount right away. So 1,146.7 times 0.1850 times 31 divided by 365. So that means she's going to owe an extra $18.08. Okay, so to figure out how much she has sitting in this account that she owes, A equals P plus I. So $1,146.70 plus $18.01. So I'm going to add that all together. And remember, guys, this is not how much she has. This is how much she owes. Okay? She has been using this bank card, but not paying off her loans. So she keeps accumulating interest on top of having to do minimum payments. So the thing we did first was we found the minimum payment she could do. The thing we did second was figured out how much interest was added on because she wasn't paying it off over 31 days. Okay, so that question's definitely tough. Make sure you come in and ask questions if you're feeling a little confused. Okay, let's go over about 4 more questions together, and then you can try a few out on your own. So let's go down and give number 7 a shot. Okay, remember there's word problem or problems solved here that you definitely want to give it a shot. So let's give number 7 and see how it is. So the store offers a bike for $689.98. You want to purchase it but cannot pay cash. Your payment options are a 10% down payment, then 6 monthly payments of $115, no down payment, and 24 monthly payments of $35. Which payment plan offers the better deal? Okay, well, this one is just essentially finding what should I do to not spend as much money. So split up your options and figure out which one's the better option. So option 1, it's a 10% down payment, then 6 monthly payments of $115. So a 10% down payment, a down payment means you take what the whole thing costs and pay a percentage of that. So we have to figure out what 10% is of $689.98. So 10% divided by 100 equals 0.1 as a decimal. 10% of $689.98 is 0.1 times $689.98. You plug that in your calculator there, and you're going to end up getting roughly $69. So we're going to pay, and our down payment will be $69, and then for 6 months, we're going to pay $115 every month. So to figure out how much the bike will cost, it'll be $69 plus 6 times 115. Okay, so that will end up being a $759 bike. And see how it's more expensive than what it was originally? So that's how financing works. So when a car, when you buy a car, you might finance it and it says it's 12 grand. You might actually end up paying it for that car for about $15,000 over an accumulation of years, paying it off. Let's look at option 2 here. No down payment, but for 24 months, you're going to pay $35 each. So here, this one's simply every month, you're going to pay $35. So that's 24 times 35. And what you're going to end up getting is $840. So that's way more expensive. It might seem cheaper because it's a smaller number, but over the course of 2 years, you're actually going to pay almost $100 more for this bike. So in reality, it might be better to just wait and buy it when you can actually afford it. If you were to decide between option 1 or option 2, you obviously go for option 1 because it's almost $100 cheaper. Okay. So knowing your number sense is really important in the real world because this is how businesses sometimes get you. Okay, and we're not going to look at option 3 here. It's a little bit more too advanced for this course, so it'll be on the scope. Okay, let's look at number 8 here. So Jacqui bought a new car. The cash price was $24,789. But she's paying in monthly installments of $450 for 60 months. What interest rate is she paying? Okay, so here, how do we deal with this? Well, first of all, let's figure out how much she's actually paying for this car. So what is she paying? Okay, well, what she's paying is for every month she pays $450, and she's doing this for 60 months. So 60 times 450, that equals $27,000. So you can already tell that's way more expensive than what the cash price is. That's roughly close to $2,300 more. Okay, so let's figure out how much she is actually paying for here, though. Okay, so how much more is she paying? And remember what that means. That's actually your interest. Okay, that's I. So we're going to take the amount that she's paying for, which is a pretty crappy deal, and I'm going to subtract that from $24,789. So she's paying $2,211 more. So this is extra because she's doing this financing deal. And remember, when you think of extra, you want to think of, well, that's the interest on this thing. So now it wants us to figure out what the interest rate is. So R. Well, this is a simple interest calculation. I equals, well, what is I? We know what I is. I is 2,211. P is how much something costs or how much you start with. That would be the original cost of your vehicle. So 24,789. R is what we're looking for, and you need time. Now, remember, this equation, the t value has to be in months. This payment was made over 60 months. Figure out what 60 months is in a year. So 60 months divided by 12, and that's going to give you 5 years. Okay? When you're converting months into years, you divide it by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So now we can solve for R because we have all of our values here. I, again, is that extra $2,211. P is 24,789. R is what we're looking for. And then T is the 5 years she paid it off. Let's multiply these two numbers together. So 24,789 times 5. And that gives me $123,945 times R. And this has stayed the same. Now, this is some really simple algebra here. How do I solve for R? Well, I divide this by both sides, 123,945, to move it to the other side. So R equals whatever this is. Now plug that in your calculator and you're going to get 0.0178. Okay, so that's my rate. Now if I want to know the percentage, I'm going to times that by 1,000. So 0. Let's do it maybe over here. Annual rate, annual interest rate, 0.0178 times 100, and that's going to give me 1.78%. So it looks like she's paying, this is what Jacqueline is paying. She is paying an annual interest rate of 1.78%. So every year she's paying an extra 1.78% because she did this silly little deal. Okay. That being said, lots of us will finance a car in our lives, especially when we start off, because lots of people can't afford this. But this is why it's important to buy within your means. So maybe you don't want to buy a $24,000 car. Okay. Maybe it's good to start lower, and as you make maybe a bit more money or you get a better job or whatever, you get promoted, then you start maybe spending a bit more cash. But if you find a really good deal, then it's a pretty good call to finance a car sometimes. It's just a matter of knowing how. Okay, so this question is really tough. I'm going to admit that. If you can do a question like this, you're really doing very, very well. Here, this is important to know how to solve for one of these variables that are different. Okay, so understanding why we divide and multiply, I would really understand how to do this for sure in this question. Okay, so let's see what other questions we should do here. So I'm going to do number 1 with you guys. And then I'll probably do number 2 and I'll leave it at that. Okay, so calculate the interest due on the following credit card balances. An unpaid balance of $2,987.69 at a rate of 21.5% so remember, credit cards work on simple interest. They don't work on compound interest. That would be awful. Okay, so it's the original amount that you have. Now remember, P is what you have in your account. So that's $2,987.69. R is this number divided by 100 because we need it in a decimal. So 0.2150. And remember, time, we have to put it as the fraction of a year because this is the yearly percent. That's how credit cards work. Their percent or their rate has to do with the year. So what is the fraction? How many days? 45 days. What's that fraction of a year? So we divide that by 365. So to figure out the interest owed after 45 days, we're going to do P, which is $2,987.69, times R, which is 0.2150, times T, which is 45 divided by 365. You would plug all that in your calculator and you're roughly going to get $79.19. Okay, so they're going to add that on to this. Okay, and that's the interest that you owe. You're not making this money. This is the unpaid balance. So you've used your credit card, but you haven't paid it off. And it slowly gets more expensive as you don't pay things off. Okay, so you probably could try this one out on your own. I'll get you started. Remember, credit cards always use simple interest. P this time, though, is $1,539.99. Your rate, again, I have to divide this by 100. Is 0.2095. The time, remember, This is the yearly rate, so we have to figure out what's the fraction of 6 months. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do 6 dividing 12 because we're not talking about days anymore, we're talking about in terms of months. So this is half a year, so t will be 0.5. Okay, and then you would plug it into your formula. So p, which is 1,539.99, times r, which is 0.2095, times 6 over 12. And then you solve for I. So practice plugging this into your in your calculator, and you should get $161. So this person didn't pay off their credit card for 6 months, and now they owe an extra $161. So make sure if you have a credit card, if you buy something, that you can pay it off right away, because you don't want to live beyond your means, or else it can get you in trouble and you start owing too much money. Okay, so actually 2 is something that we've done. 2 is an exact replica to 8. Okay, so maybe try 8 out, or sorry, 2, and see how it relates to, or not 8, sorry, it relates to, what question was that? There it is. It relates to number 3, okay? So number 3, you gotta be aware of how many days you haven't paid something off. So maybe give that question 2 a shot and see how it does. If you can't figure it out for any reason, please come in and ask. Okay, we can figure it out together and do some questions. Other than that, I hope that was helpful. If you're feeling a little confused, of course, come in and ask. Give these additional questions a chance. And if you want to come in and go through them together, that would be great. And don't forget to do whatever assignments that are posted. Have a good day.